You're tuned in to RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's RBLR Sports.
4 seconds left. In front. Happy moment. The Tampa Bay Lightning have won the first Stanley Cup. And the Tampa Bay Lightning have won the Stanley Cup. Lightning strikes twice. The Tampa Bay Lightning win their second straight Stanley Cup.
I was muted, but now I'm not muted, and now I'm here. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to RBLR Lightning. As always, my name is Jake Ricker. Alongside me is Matt Gannon. Joe could not be with us today, but he will be back soon. Matt, a couple little things to talk about. We're into the full force of the off season, so things are kind of slowing down a little bit here. But first and foremost, my friend, how you doing today?
Just delightful, Jake. Thank you for asking. It's still not even like close to the heart of the offseason either. I mean, shoot, there's still hockey games playing. Like, we've got a long road ahead of us, and even still 3 years removed from deep runs, these off seasons are still hard to cope with, these long off seasons. But overall, I'm doing well. Yourself?
I'm doing well. Well, you're right. You get used to those longer offs or the longer seasons and the shorter off seasons, and then these long ones happen. You're like, man, how do other teams do this every? It gets a little boring. But we've got a couple little things to talk about. We'd love to hear what all of our live viewers joining us with us today have to say. So if you got something, drop it down in the comments below. We'll throw it up on screen. We'll talk about it. We always love for you guys to join the conversation. Don't forget, if you're not watching this one live and watching on YouTube later, you can follow us on social media at RBLR Sports, at RBLR Lightning, so you don't miss out when we do go live. Usually on Mondays around 6 o'clock, but sometimes schedules change. But that's usually what we shoot for. Anyway, couple of things that we want to talk about early here, Matt. You mentioned there's still hockey games being played. And something was said by Matthew Tkachuk that I thought was kind of interesting and also I thought really weird. I don't know if you saw it, but basically Tkachuk said in an interview that the first round was the hardest round for the Florida Panthers, which of course the Florida Panthers' opponent in the first round was the Tampa Bay Lightning. I don't know about you, Matt, but I don't buy this at all because we talked about this when the season ended. I thought this was one of the, I don't want to say worst, but this is just not a great postseason for the Lightning. I thought there were a lot of things that they did not do well, and it just surprised me that the Lightning were the toughest one. My guess is this was really just to get under the skin of the Edmonton Oilers and their fans right now, saying that like the Lightning were the hardest one and they weren't even that good. But some Lightning fans are super excited about those comments. Not super excited, but just saying that, hey, look, we may have lost in the first round, but they said we were really good.
Yeah, I'm with you, Jake. I don't really believe it for a second, especially considering who it's coming from too. Like, I'm not a Matthew Tkachuk fan by any stretch. And, he's a big part of his game is the mind games. And, he does have Paul Maurice as a coach too, who kind of went to the John Cooper school of just playing with the media and just having funny, witty answers with the media and playing mind games. Like Cooper, he's a little bit more discreet about it, but Paul Maurice and Matthew Tkachuk, they really do like to blab off to the media. And it's funny as, trying to be an unbiased fan, the way they do talk, but I'm having a hard time believing that comment at all. Like, I don't think we were the most physical team that we played against. Like Carolina definitely got their pound of flesh out of them. Definitely didn't take them to 7 games like Toronto did. So I don't really see that. It might just be a tactic, like you're saying, to get, in the Oilers' heads, mess with the fans, mess with the team maybe if they're hearing that. But especially considering how both Tkachuk and Paul Maurice did talk after the Toronto series, like, oh man, they're a great team. They're hard to play in the playoffs. It's like, those are two lies right there. So I don't believe that for a second.
Well, you know how it is for teams after they eliminate a team. It's all the niceties of, oh yeah, they're a really tough team to play well. Come on, give us the real answers here. We know those are just bold-faced lies for the media, but and listen, the Lightning, they've had a lot of successful runs. This postseason just didn't work out quite for them. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I think, oh, well, Tkachuk said that was the toughest round. Well, maybe we did play well, and this wasn't too bad. This was a very disappointing result for the Lightning at the end of the regular season. I don't think that there's any solace. It's almost like the argument for me of if the Panthers were to win the Cup, which currently, if you don't know, they're 1 win away. We're going into Game 6 here, Series 3-2. That some people will say, "Oh, well, you lost to the team that won it all, so it's like you're the second best team." I don't buy into that at all.
It's such a loser mentality, Coach.
I don't like it. Some people do. That's how this kind of feels to me. Like, oh, Chuck said we were the hardest one, which I don't even believe it. I don't think it really does anything. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. The Lightning are into the offseason. We're looking ahead at what are they going to do to improve their team and all of that fun stuff, the awards. And here's the big thing that we did just find out today is we found out some of our players are going to the Olympics, Matt, in 2026. The preliminary rosters were just announced, and we have a lot of Lightning players that were involved in those announcements, which is super cool. So I say, let's get into that. Who do we want to start with here, Matt? Do we want to start from the bottom in the sense of the lesser-known, smaller countries, or do we want to start from the top?
Let's start with the not favorites, I guess. We got to keep people, here for a little bit longer. So.
All right, let's do that. The first one that was announced, this is for – I might even butcher this because I didn't even know that this was a team, but it's for Team Latvia for Zemgus Girgensons. Where is
Latvia?
Is it Latvia?
Yes.
Latvia. I'll be honest with you, I didn't even know. I couldn't tell you where it is on a map.
I could, but I'm a geography nerd.
Oh, well, okay.
Yeah, there's not a whole, heck of a lot of Latvian players in the NHL, but Zemgus Girgensons and who are the others? It's like Elvis Merzlinkins. They've all got some great names, but yeah, Zemgus Girgensons being on the Latvian team, the roster isn't exactly star-studded. Girgensons definitely didn't have, a great year, but out of the few Latvian, NHLers, he is deserving. Again, there's not a whole lot to choose from, but still, he's a useful player. So I don't think Latvia is really going to be a huge competition. But for whatever reason, in international competition, Olympics past, without NHLers or, the World Juniors, Latvia is always a pretty hard out. Despite not being a star-studded team at pretty much any level, they play hard. They play a good way. And Girgensons, despite not being, a goal scorer or really offensive guy, he might fit that mold pretty good.
That's a good point. And he does play pretty hard. He was that lower line guy, kind of gritty guy, almost like a Pat Maroon type role. He wasn't Pat Maroon, but my point of, he wasn't a super offensive guy, but he was there to fill his role. And he did it nicely for the Bolts. And he is getting selected to go into the Olympics. So good for him. Good, congratulations. Our producer, Eureka, said that they're the 10th ranked IHF squad. Really? 10th ranked? I mean, that's pretty impressive. But I can't remember the last time I watched them play an Olympic game. But hey, Zemgus Girgensons is there, so we'll get to check him out during the Olympics and see how that they are able to do in this year's competition.
And Latvia parties, man. They take international. A lot of European nations take like international competition very seriously, like, outside of the NHL as well. Like the last, few Olympics without the NHLers. And Latvia won, I want to say, the men's worlds in 2023. It could have been 2022. And the entire country was, just elated. They were on cloud nine. I think they made it like a national holiday too. Or no, I don't even think they won it or something. I think they placed like third or something actually. And it was still just the biggest, awesomest, coolest thing for them. So Latvia really knows how to celebrate right, even if they don't win it all.
I love that. Well, maybe they'll get the shot this year to really celebrate here in 2026 and surprise everybody. What a story that would be. Another Lightning player for the team that's going to the Olympics is Erik Cernak, who will be playing for Team Slovakia. So Erik Cernak, the defenseman, getting his bid into the 2026 Olympics. Another team, Matt, that's technically on the lower end, but they're gritty guys that can surprise you every once in a while. And listen, for Erik Cernak, he's always had weird seasons for the Bolts because he deals with a lot of injuries, but when healthy, can always be a solid player.
Yeah, the only reason he deals with those injuries is because of how he plays. He is a hard-nosed, shot blocking, body checking kind of dude. Like, those injuries come with how he plays. Would I like him to be a little bit more durable? Yes. Would I do what he does? Absolutely not. So I can't really criticize. Slovakia, they're definitely a little bit better than who we just covered, Latvia. They're on the come up. Juraj Slafkovsky, first overall pick a few years ago, first Slovakian player ever picked first overall. They've got a good program over there. Still going to be a dark horse to win it all for the Olympics, but cool that Eric Chernak, he's probably like their number 1D on that team. He might be running the power play on that team. That'd be interesting to see.
Thomas Tatar is on this team. That's one big name that jumps out to me as probably one of their top players. Tatar was a guy actually that I would hoped at some point the Lightning might make a run at, but ended up on the New Jersey Devils. So what are you shaking your head over there, Matt?
I don't know. People love him and people hate him. He was somebody, he kind of always has been linked to the Lightning. I'd always see his names like in trade rumors or free agency rumors, but some people love him, some people hate him. I don't think he would help any of our issues really. And I think he's signed in overseas now too.
I think it's because I traded for him in an NHL video game. All right, then I like this guy. Another player for the Lightning headed to the Olympics is going to be on Team Denmark, and that is Oliver Bjorkstrand, the newly acquired Tampa Bay Lightning forward, who we didn't get to see much, unfortunately, because he ran into an injury. But excited to see Bjorkstrand back out on the ice and competing. The Lightning fans will get a closer look at him because I do think he's a very, very talented shooter. And boy, when he's on point, when it comes to the finishing statistic, when he's able to put those pucks in the back of the net, he is good. Almost every shot he takes is one of those high-quality shots that has a chance to go in. And really exciting to see him into the Olympics as a member of the Bulls.
Yeah, in the few games that he did get to play with the Lightning this year, he scored in his first one, I think it was, and then just went on a little bit of a dry spell. And it wasn't for lack of trying. I think it was being more snake bit than just being bad. But, he's going to be playing top line minutes. He'll probably be, first line winger on Team Denmark. Again, like the other countries we've covered, not, really big hockey nations or anything. He'll be playing with the likes of Nikolai Ehlers, who's a good, goal scorer, good all-around player. So, good for Bjorkstrand too. Hopefully, he's recovered. I know he dealt with a brutal injury, but again, we're still 8 months away from the Olympics. So cool. Now, another good selection.
You know what player Bjorkstrand kind of reminds me of right now, and I'm kind of getting myself ahead of myself here, but I think is going to have a breakout. What is this next season? 2026 is Brendan Hagel. I think Bjorkstrand's on a similar path to Brendan Hagel. I really like what I saw from Bjorkstrand this season. Didn't quite meet the expectations for everybody. I think happened to Hagel too, but now that he's going to have a full off season here in Tampa, he'll be healthy and ready to go. I say look out for Oliver Bjorkstrand, and maybe he'll make an impact here at the Olympics too. So I'm very high.
It took a while for him to start clicking, but once it started clicking, like he was electric on the power play. He was good at even strength. Like just like you're saying with Brandon Hagel, not every guy transitions, easy. Hopefully next year, we've still got him under contract for next year at a decent cap hit too. So hopefully, he really shows up, and hopefully he can stay healthy too. It was a kind of a freak injury, nothing to really be concerned with.
Yeah, but I'm high on Oliver Bjorkstrand. Maybe he'll be my big prediction. And I could go another Brandon Hagel round. That would be great. But Bjorkstrand going to play for Team Denmark. And speaking of similar players like Brendan Hagel and Canadian-born players, Brendan Hagel did not get announced to a roster just quite yet, but one of his teammates did, and that is Braden Point, who will be representing the Lightning for Team Canada in these early roster announcements. And this is a big honor, Matt, obviously, because there are so many great Canadian players. And for Braden Point to be selected in the first early goings here says a lot about how great of a player he is.
Absolutely. You look at the guys he was selected with, it was who is I got it right here. Sidney Crosby, Cale Makar, Nathan McKinnon, Connor McDavid. The only other outlier that I would put in the same echelon as Braden Point is Sam Reinhart, who is also reluctantly saying this, an A-caliber player. Like they're all just super rock solid. They're probably the favorites going into the Olympics, but still, what a huge honor. I still think Braden Point is one of the, if not the most underrated, underappreciated players in the league. So again, just a huge honor. I'm glad that, he did make this preliminary roster. I don't think, who was it? Doug Armstrong, the GM for Team Canada, the Blues GM, I want to say. So it's not even like he's got somebody looking out for him. It's not like JBB's selecting this team or anything. I know John Cooper is going to be the coach, but he doesn't really have any say in that. So cool. Love the appreciation for Braden Point.
And it's well deserved. He's a top player on the Lightning. He made an impact in the Four Nations face-off too. So very happy to see him into this early roster, like you said, Matt, with all of those great players for Team Canada. And I think there will be some Lightning teammates that will join him at some point. Like, I could very easily see Brandon Hagel being on this list when they announce the full rosters. I don't know if we'll get 3 Lightning players like we did last time, but there's definitely some big Canadian players from Tampa Bay Lightning that can make an impact on this roster, and they will be a powerhouse as always. That's never really a big surprise when it comes to Team Canada.
I doubt they're going to take Anthony Cirelli again. Like, he was useful at his time in the Four Nations, but I think he finished with no points, and he was used very sparingly. Again, it's hard to it's crazy he even made that roster. He was having such a good season. He is a great player after all, but still, I don't know if he's going to make the Olympic team. But I think Brandon Hagel still has a pretty decent shot of it too. So hopefully we do see some more players on the Canadian team. That'd be great.
And then for the Lightning, another player that is going to the Olympics in these early announcements is the one and only captain for Team Sweden for Victor Hedman. So Victor Hedman getting announced as well. This doesn't come as much of a surprise, Matt. Hedman always involved when representing Team Sweden, the captain of the Lightning, and he was a clear pick.
Yeah, not that I'm, cheering for anyone outside the U.S., but I think it'd be really cool if Victor could take home gold as a captain, really help cement that Hall of Fame resume. Yeah, he's the captain of that team, right? I mean, I don't see any other better choice for that because he's already the captain of the NHL team. So super cool. I'd love for him to have a big tournament. Again, I'm a huge Victor Hedman fan, despite, maybe his recent defensive woes. Hopefully, the Olympics, not being a break, it gives some guys some extra gas. So Victor being the captain, I think he'll be a huge part of that team. Hopefully Sweden has a better outing this time than they did at the Four Nations. I thought they were kind of underwhelming. So, again, just a huge honor, especially being named the captain. Awesome.
Very exciting to see 5 Lightning players selected to these early preliminary rosters that'll be representing the Bolts at the Olympics. That's a lot of Lightning players to get selected this early. I'm sure we're going to see more as those roster comes out. And Beverly points out one that may be kind of surprising. It's saying that's strange. Gensel wasn't chosen for the first 6 for USA, especially given how well he played in the Four Nations. Yes, Beverly, 100%. I am definitely surprised that he did not get picked. I do, you look at who the USA has, and the announcement was Quinn Hughes, Charlie McAvoy, Austin Matthews, Brady Tkachuk, Jack Eichel, and Matthew Tkachuk. A lot of those I understand, but how do you not put Gensel in there after how good he was in the Four Nations face-off? And he had a great year this year with the Lightning.
Yeah, Gensel was the best player for Team Canada or Team USA, in my opinion. He always shows up. Another just perennially underrated guy. I'm so glad that he's on the Lightning, but it's also kind of strange too they didn't include Connor Hellebuck too. He just won the Hart and the Vezina trophy. Kind of bummer, but I think only one team. I think it was Team Germany's the only team that announced a goal, or Germany and Denmark are the only ones that announced a goalie, and it's just kind of because they're not quite as star-studded, but still a bit of a shame. But Gensel is a guarantee. He's player number 7 on that list, or 8 behind Hellebuck, I guess. And he's just not as big of a draw. I don't know if this is kind of a marketing thing too, but is he as big of a name as Brady Tkachuk or Austin Matthews or Quinn Hughes or anything like that? Unfortunately, no. So I do take that into account as well.
That's a good point. I do wonder how they announce these first initial players. It has to be a marketing thing, right?
I guess.
Although, I think it'd be really cool I would almost put him in over Eichel on the initial announcement, just because, that how big the Tkachuk brothers and Gensel were for Team USA in the Four Nations face-off. If you want marketing, there's your marketing right there. The guy's biggest impact at the Four Nations face-off, right back at it for the 2026 Olympics. I'm sure he will be on this team. I'd be shocked if he wasn't going to the Olympics for Team USA. But
hockey and good marketing mix like oil and water, Jake, and we all know this, unfortunately.
Hey, they've been better, we'll credit where credit is due. They've been better as of late, but you're right. Marketing is not the NHL's, or really hockey for that matter, strong suit.
And I do think we should probably talk about the elephant not in the room. It's no secret or surprise. Team Russia is not going to be playing in this year's Olympics. It is a bummer. You've got the two best Russian players in the world right now, Vasilevsky and Kucherov. It's a shame that they're probably not going to be able to play. There's still maybe a chance that they're going to be able to do the Olympic athletes from Russia team. I'm not sure how that's all going to go about, but I'm not going to get my hopes up or anything. But it is still such a shame that they're not going to be able to compete for a gold medal this year. Hopefully 4 years down the road, there's still, high enough caliber players to, make the team next year. Yeah, exactly. And I'm not going to get into the geopolitics of everything. There's no correct side to be on in any war, in my opinion, but it's not the players doing it. Like, right. A lot of hypocrisy in all of it. Again, I don't agree with anything that's going on, but man, it's not the players. Don't punish the players. But that's besides the point. It's just a bummer.
Maybe we will get some kind of like athletes from Russia sort of team, and those guys, Vasilevsky, Ovechkin, who's just broke the goal record. And
yeah, this is for sure going to be his last time trying to compete for that, Ovechkin.
Right. That's also very
Most
true.
likely.
So it's unfortunate. We'll have to wait and see if they potentially do something. But as of right now, there's no Team Russia. Well, there definitely won't be a Team Russia. But we'll get to see some of the Russian players. That is to be determined.
And I guess another little consolation thing too, if things get ironed out in that side of the world, the NHL is still planning to do their World Cup. Just get rid of the 4 nations and do. What is it? Talking 8 teams, maybe. Still a chance if things get mended that in 2 years' time, that could be a possibility too. So, but it's not best on best.
It's not best on best, but only one can hope that we'll get it eventually at some point, and maybe some of those bigger players like Ovechkin will still be around to compete in those one last time. A couple other comments here I want to get to from Mr. Magic. Mr. Magic, we really appreciate you jumping in here. A lot of different things that he's throwing out there. Jumping back to point a little bit to end the conversation here on the Olympics. And sometimes it makes me wonder what could have been if we had Pointer in the 2020 finals. Yes,
4-game sweep.
One of the biggest probably what ifs for the Lightning is that if you had Point, because even though he played in those finals, he wasn't Braden Point. He was still banged up and just not himself. And the Lightning, if you remember in that series, they needed speed bad. They didn't have it. So it definitely – would it have changed the outcome? I don't know, but it definitely would have helped and gave the Lightning a big chance at the end there.
Let me ask you this, Jake, and let me also the chat get involved too. Would you rather have a healthy Braden Point in 2022 or a healthy Ben Bishop in 2015? That's hard.
That's a good question. That's a good question. I'm going to say
I don't know.
I have my answer, and I think it's clear cut. I'm going with a healthy Ben Bishop in 2015.
Really?
Because I think with a healthy Pointer, I think the Lightning have a good chance, but Colorado was definitely a really good opponent for the Lightning. We're playing very good hockey. That was the tail end of 3 straight Stanley Cup final runs, which is so difficult to do. Unless you're a team from Florida, it's just really easy, apparently. But that's really hard to do. So if Pointer's healthy, I think the Lightning have a chance. I don't think it's guaranteed. If Bishop's healthy, I think they beat the Blackhawks. Also, I'm a big Ben Bishop fan. I really, really wanted to see him win a cup, and I'm disappointed he never got the chance to do that. So there is some bias there, but I do truly think that Bishop makes a bigger impact on the finals than Point would have in 2022.
Yeah, I think I want Point healthy more for that finals because it gives us a better chance. But I do think that Ben Bishop being healthy in 2015 is probably a bigger X factor. Like, who is a more important player, your starting goaltender or a very good forward? I guess maybe your second or third best forward that year. So I do kind of give the edge to Ben Bishop. But I would have rather won in 2022 because 3-peat, oh man, that'd have been cool. But whatever, it's all in the past.
But also, you beat the Blackhawks in 2015, which that always feels a little good, right? So
yeah, but did you hate the Blackhawks in 2014? No.
Well, that's true. That's true. It's a tough question. We'd love to hear what you guys have to think down in the comments below. Let us know. Would you rather have,
or if you have an even better one or something like that? Leave it in
Mr.
the
Magic
comments.
says goaltending. He's going with point because his goaltending wasn't really a problem in 2015. We just couldn't score goals. Yes, to an extent. Well, and to be it was Vasilevsky who came in, and who knows if we had a healthy Ben Bishop, what happens to Andre Vasilevsky? Maybe he never takes over. We're getting too far down.
Butterfly effect.
Exactly.
What about a healthy Tyler Johnson versus healthy Ben Bishop in 2015?
There you go. That's another good one.
Yeah.
Where were all these ideas last? No.
Right.
These are good questions, though. These are very good questions. One more comment here on the Olympics from Daniel. Hot take. I'd rather Les Bolts go to the Olympics. Hate to see Tampa season derailed by an injury in the Olympics. I understand where you're coming from, and we kind of saw that with the Panthers when they dealt with it. Or wait, was it was Tkachuk, right?
Tkachuk, yeah.
Yeah. So I can kind of understand that. Granted, the Panthers still made the playoffs, but
And the finals.
I don't think you can sit there and think in that worst case scenario mindset. Listen, any game you play is a chance to get hurt, and to get to see these guys compete in these tournaments and how fun the Four Nations face-off was. I want to see them compete. I know those guys want to compete. It's so much fun, and there's even an argument to be made that some of these players actually start to play better because they just get revitalized. I mean, look what Jake Gensel did. He was so good at the Four Nations face-offs, and some of that carried over into after that. So I understand, though. It's definitely frustrating for teams when an injury happens. Here's a good point, Daniel. Look at McAvoy and Boston.
Oh, that derailed their season.
It did, but again, the Lightning have a lot of star players. You never want an injury, but I'd rather watch those players succeed and have a lot of fun. And I don't think you can think in that worst case scenario because, listen, that's part of the game, and it's unfortunate. But it would be a real bummer to just do away with something like that. That's so much fun. Now, if you want to make the argument they should move it into the offseason, that's a whole other topic. But I still rather see it.
I do understand your point, Daniel, but the way I'm looking at it too is that international competition, and don't count the Four Nations, but like straight actual double IHF international competitions, they're a lot, they're not as physical. There's no fighting or anything. Big hits are called way more often as penalties and charges. Like international officiating is way, way, way tighter than NHL officiating. So I think there is a bit less of a chance of injury. People aren't going to be as physical, but also at the same time, injuries are 90% of the time complete accidents. It's random stuff, losing an edge and going into the boards or something. Like, it's not always a physicality thing. So I am on the edge, but I'm also, man, send them all. I need to get all of my players in the Olympics. It's so cool watching them and cheering them on. The players love it, and they would never say no. They've been begging for this for years.
That's a great point. At the end of the day, the players would definitely go. I think there's no question about that.
Mm-hmm.
Beverly did ask, wonder if Stammer will be chosen for Canada for the Olympics. It's probably unlikely, especially with the way that last season went for him. Just didn't go well. And usually you got to have big name players who are playing great hockey. Those are the ones that get chosen. I would love to see Stammer finally get his well-deserved shot because he ran into all of those issues, whether it was injury or COVID happening, canceling the Olympics. It's definitely been a rough go for poor Stammer when it comes to that. But unfortunately, just the way with the season. Now, if you get a great season, there's definitely an argument to be made, but I can't see it.
Yeah, love Stamkos. He's our captain for so long, but he's not who he used to be. He wasn't for a while here in Tampa even. And there's guys like Mark Scheifele who didn't make Team Canada, who I would say is probably a better all-around player and more useful to Team Canada than, let's call a spade, a one-timer specialist now. Still love him to death, but I don't think, especially for best-on-best international competition, I don't know if his defensive woes quite match what Team Canada is really looking for.
Now, listen, that's not to say either that Stammer come out next year and have the best year of his career. And
I hope not.
Well, maybe he should be involved, or maybe he comes back to Tampa and has a great year. Who knows? There's it's not to say that he's never going to play in some kind of capacity in a international tournament. Just the way things went for him last year, unfortunately, it's hard to say that he would make the roster. And maybe there's some injuries for Canada and somebody can't go and he's a guy that gets subbed in. That's a possibility as well. So it's not 100% that he wouldn't play. I just think for at least the roster announcements, I don't think it would happen. Looking at a couple, we really appreciate everybody jumping in with all the comments here.
Yeah.
A lot of people.
You guys are making the offseason easy on us.
Daniel said Cooper isn't taking a guy who doesn't play two ways in the best of best. Well, I wonder how much. I mean, Cooper has to have some decision-making powers, obviously, because he is the coach. But I wonder how those conversations. That's something I'd love to be a fly on the wall for between the GM and the coach, and hear about how actually those things go down. Daniel said, "Good chance Hagel and Cirelli make it again." I agree with you on Hagel. I don't know about Cirelli. I could see him possibly missing it. Maybe he's another one of those sub players. Matt, I think you agree with me too, right? That Cirelli. You said earlier that Cirelli, you don't think is one that could do it.
I think even maybe Hagel still has an outside chance. Like, there's not a guarantee for that. I think it'd probably be the right choice. But again, there's dudes like Mark Scheifele, who's still bonkers to me. He did not make the Four Nations team. Awesome having Hagel and Cirelli there. And again, maybe that's kind of the style they were looking for. Those two guys, play a very crucial role for like a regular NHL team. So maybe they're going to go with that style again. My brain thinks offense. Those guys are defensive-minded centers. I don't see Cirelli making it again unless he just has an even better or, same on-par kind of season that he did last year, but that's going to be hard to replicate for Cirelli.
Once those rosters do come out, be sure to like and subscribe right here, ring the bell with notifications, follow us on social media, all that fun stuff, because we will absolutely be breaking it down once we know who's on the team, what Lightning players made it, and all of that fun stuff. Matt, let's move to a couple of fun, interesting rumors for the Lightning offseason, because why not? It's never too early to have a little fun with some rumors, right?
Never.
I'm curious to get your opinion on some of these, because I know you're going to have an opinion, because we always get excited for Matt's opinions.
I'm never strongly opinionated, Jake.
No, you're never on Instagram fighting with teams.
No.
In the comment section. No. Anyway, here is one that I think is interesting. We've seen some reports now that the Lightning could be interested in a certain forward, a very much older forward, used to play for a team in 2015 that did beat the Lightning in the Stanley Cup Finals, and that's none other than Jonathan Toews. Toews is trying to make his return to the hockey. Elliot Friedman on 32 Thoughts mentioned that the Lightning could be one of those teams interested in him. And I think this is interesting for two reasons. One, obviously, we all know who Jonathan Toews is. He was one of the best players in the NHL, especially for the Blackhawks in their prime. Not the same player anymore, coming back from being injured, but maybe a guy they could sign for pretty cheap. And the Lightning could use a little bit of forward depth, and maybe he comes back as another great player. I don't know what kind of contract he'd be looking for, but I can't imagine it would be a huge contract. So that's where I kind of see this as a potential – maybe it could work if you can get him on somewhat of a cheaper deal, and the Lightning could use that little extra help at forward, I think. So I wouldn't hate it at the right price.
Mm-hmm. I wonder what the Toews sweepstakes is going to look like. Like, I would, definitely have him as a part of the team. But I wouldn't give him, I wouldn't give him multiple years. I wouldn't give him much of anything, over $1 million, $1.5 million or something. And maybe even a PTO. I don't know how, timid other teams might be with offers for him. He's probably going to look for a sweetheart situation, what's right for him, what's right for his family. If he really is trying to make a comeback, Tampa's a great place to retire and, live your life.
No state taxes.
It's going to be a really interesting thing, but he has been out for longer than Landeskog has been out. He missed 3 years. And Landeskog, despite him jumping back pretty easily, he still, wasn't perfect in his return. And, God knows what Toews' conditioning is like. He didn't deal with an injury. It was long-term COVID effects is what I'm under the impression of what it was ailing him, which, who knows if his wind is good, what his conditioning is like. I'm sure, an elite level athlete is taking care of himself, at least better than my best days. But still, these are all big concerns. I would be shocked if he plays all 82 games on whatever team he signs him, but I would still take him. It would have to be a very cheap deal. It have to be a very short deal, and it has to be a prove it deal, and you're, 35, 36, 37 even maybe, he's well over the curve. He's not going to be who he is. Even Patrick Kane is slowing way, way, way down. would be really cool. Kane's a free agent. Maybe they both want to come to Tampa. You know?
That'd be quite the shocker. You know what isn't shocking though, Matt?
Hell.
All of the amazing merch over at shop.rblrsports.com, which you guys can use code BOLTS to get 10% off your order. Gear up, even though it's the off season, never too early to get ready for next year. Oh, you got to gear up for the Tampa Bay Lightning. Awesome team-inspired merch, not only from the Lightning, but for the Rays, the Bucks, the Rowdies, the Sun, who just won the championship. So congratulations to the Sun, Tampa Bay, continuing to move right along. So don't forget, you can use code BOLTS to get 10% off your order for all this amazing team-inspired merch. And again, shop.rblrsports.com. Links, as always, are down in the description. Going back to the conversation for who players can get. By the way, pop the champagne bottle, Matt. I'm actually going to agree with a comment here from Daniel, which is very rare, as we all know.
That is very rare.
He says, Toes is a good fit, lower cost, solid, responsible veteran leader. I think they get outbid by Colorado, Winnipeg, or Toronto, though. I can very easily see that happening because, again, even with the Lightning's cap situation, while better, it's still not great. And there's definitely teams that can offer him more money. And as Matt, you kind of said, he might be looking for that. What'd you call it? A sweetheart situation?
Maybe, yeah. And, you know, it could also come down to, like, playing time, too. I can't imagine he'll be, you know, playing anything above the second line here, whereas, like, Colorado, they need all the center help they can get. Toronto, they need all the help they can get. And Winnipeg is his hometown team, too. So I would say they probably will all outbid us unless he just really, really wants to play in Florida or somewhere warm or just a good, you know, off-the-ice situation. But I think those might be all better fits for him. Maybe not Toronto. That's not a good fit for anyone.
Time will tell. And of course, the Lightning do have the pitch of, listen, as we said when we were in our main run for the Lightning, jet skis, no state income tax, and Stanley Cups. What more could you want? There's definitely a pitch to be made to Jonathan Toews. I think it'll be interesting to see who comes down in a way with a player like him who is so well respected in the NHL and made such a great run back in the Blackhawks era. A couple other so many comments. Again, thank you guys for joining the conversation. Really do appreciate it.
Seriously.
Let's see what else we got here. Mr. Magic threw this out here, and I think this is interesting because it was talked about in the trade deadline that this could be a possibility. It never happened, but there's been speculation the Bolts could be on JJ Peterka, which I remember them talking about that at the trade deadline. I don't know. Again, it just goes back to the Lightning's cap situation. Some players, I don't know who's gone in those situations. I think the Lightning mostly have their roster kind of set. It just kind of depends on what they could give up back. I wouldn't hate it.
No.
I'd definitely be open to that for sure, especially if they can't get a guy like Toews. But the question is, can they make that happen? I'm not 100% sure if we could.
I'm not sure. The whole JJ Peterka saga right now is a really interesting one to follow. I don't know if we have the capital to acquire him, like the non-money capital to acquire him. I don't know what it would take for an offer sheet or a trade or something. Actually, maybe if Isaac Howard wants to, wind his way out of Tampa, what better way to send him to the Shadow Realm than to Buffalo? Maybe he could be involved in a package or something. I don't know if I see that happen. I think we've got a better chance of landing Alex Tuck than we do JJ Peterka, and I think Tuck is probably I think he's a perfect fit for the Lightning. I was so bummed when they decided to keep him. It might take a lot to get him, but I think Tuck is the guy that the Lightning really need.
I was big on Alex Tuck with you on that. Maybe things change throughout the offseason. Maybe Isaac Howard is one piece the Lightning could use as a potential bargaining chip in some kind of trade deal like that, because I know a lot of fans are very anxious with the Isaac Howard situation. I expect that to happen more closer to the draft. That's usually when a lot of these trades will happen. And again, there's a whole other conversation with Isaac Howard. And do teams kind of know the Lightning are up against the fence? Is his trade value just nowhere near what it was? We don't know what those conversations are with JBB and the rest of the NHL. But, hey, maybe Isaac Howard's involved somewhere there, and that could help the Lightning make one of those deals. It's definitely possible. Other defenseman I did see the Lightning interested in, and I don't know if I love this, Matt, but it's rumored that the Lightning may be interested on San Jose Sharks defenseman, and I'm missing, where's his name? There we go. Mario Ferrero, which, it's tough to look at players from the Sharks because you try to look at their stats to figure out if they're decent or not. You can't do that because everybody's stats on the Sharks are not good. But his contract relatively cheap at like just above $3 million, and definitely a player they could acquire. Now he's a left-handed defenseman, which the Lightning more need a right-handed defenseman, I think. But just something interesting that the Lightning, at the very least, it seems like they are kicking the tires on all the options out there to improve this team, which I do love to hear.
This is one of those players, kind of like John Gibson and like Toronto. It's like, just kiss already. Make it happen. I've heard the Mario Ferraro rumors for like 3 years now. Like, he's a good, solid, stay-at-home defenseman. He can put up some points. He's not Ryan McDonough and he's not Victor Hedman or anything like that, but I think he'd be definitely helpful. But I'm just kind of tired of hearing his name, not even just linked to the Lightning, linked to 31 other teams. Just kiss already. Either do it or don't. Shut up or make it happen. I'd happily have him. I don't know what it would take to get him. The Lightning already do have a rapport. Julian Breesbaugh does have a relationship built with Mike Greer, the GM of the Sharks. He got Anthony Duclair a few years ago. So, and GMs always do love to return to their GMs that they already know and make more trades or deals with them. So it is a possibility, but I'm in the camp of just shut up and kiss.
I love that. Well, we may have to wait a little bit longer again until usually you start seeing more trades happen after the finals conclude. You get a little bit closer to the draft.
Mm-hmm.
Daniel with a comment here saying Howard isn't going to be worth anything. Howard holds all the cards. If he gets dealt somewhere he doesn't want to play, he can decide to stay in college. I do agree that Howard holds most of the cards. It's just kind of obvious in the situation, the way this is rolled out. But the Lightning do have one advantage when it comes to talking with teams that may want him, in the sense of they can say, like, listen, if this guy goes to free agency, you're going to have to compete with 32 other teams. Right now, you're just talking to me right now. Make me happy, and you won't have to compete with those teams, and you'll get early negotiation rights. So maybe there's something there. But I definitely don't think his value is nearly as high as it once was. And we talked about this before, Matt, and just saying that kind of good riddance to Howard. Listen, that's the way you're going to act. It's kind of like a Jonathan Drouin situation. So it's unfortunate. It would have been great to see him in a Lightning sweater, but I don't know where he's going to end up and how the things are going to work out, because there's a lot of teams who may realize quickly that he's not going to be able to play top minutes on.
I have an idea.
A breakthrough.
I have an idea. So he is a Wisconsin-born boy. Not a whole lot of teams around there other than the Minnesota Wild. The Minnesota Wild have an RFA that they're not too happy with, who I think is a pretty solid player, in Marco Rossi. There could be a swap there. Maybe Howard wants to play for his air quote hometown team. I don't know if he is a Wild fan or not, but that's about the closest place geographically. I'm really just, brainstorming, galaxy braining this, but there's a possibility. Let me be optimistic about something other than trading him for a fifth.
Right? Yeah, that would really stink.
Yeah.
Is it bad that I thought you were going to say Zach Bogosian there?
I didn't even go there. Okay, we'll get Marco Rossi and Zach Bogosian back.
There you go. I thought for sure Zach Bogosian was coming out of your mouth, but I was
didn't
wrong.
even think of that.
There's a lot of interesting things that are going to be happening this offseason. And again, a lot of them are going to just have to wait, because we don't know what the conversations are with guys like Gage Gonsalves and what he's going to sign for. Will other guys get traded, or who's at the draft the Lightning can take it, think can make an impact? That's the hard part about off seasons, is that we can sit here and blab all we want, but there are just so many unknown factors, and we don't know what's going to happen.
I got nothing.
This
should make me GM, man. I would make off seasons so much fun.
Oh, I would sign up for that, absolutely, to see what you would. Maybe that's the next thing we do. We'll start streaming NHL GM modes and let you.
I mean, the way I do it on NHL is the same way Julian Breesbaugh does it. First round pick out the door. First round pick out the door. First round pick out the door. Like, I'm not much different from him.
That would be definitely entertaining to watch you go to town and make see what you can do to make this team better. One more comment here. Daniel saying, I think trading 81 would make more sense than Radish. He's often injured, makes way more money. We did talk about this when Cernak was announced. He's going to the Olympics. He gets injured often. But, yeah, it is another possibility. I just don't know if I see JBB trading what he thinks is one of his core guys that he locked up long-term, and Cernak was one of them. It's possible. You never know. But
it's possible, but he's on a steep cap hit. I don't know how interested other teams might be. But right-handed defensemen are a commodity.
Trade calls, I believe, too, or at least a modified one, because JBB likes to hand those out like candy sometimes a little bit. But
oh, yeah. And I don't know. I for whatever reason, he's always kind of the big money trade bait guy. But at the same time, seeing what the team has done over the last 2-3 seasons, getting rid of defense is the last thing I think we need to do, and then giving Darren Radish a bigger role is also low on my list of priorities too. Like, again, I know Cernak is a revolving door of injuries, but at the same time, when he's out there, most of the time he's effective in what he does.
Daniel did respond to me saying 98 was a core guy before last year's draft. Yes, but you were shocked when that happened. I don't think anybody really saw that one coming, to be fair. So that's why I don't expect to see Cernak traded. I could be wrong, though. He could move him. Again, we just don't know. It'll definitely be interesting to see once we get closer and maybe hear more rumors about how they handle that situation. And again, a lot of that I think depends on like what is Jonathan Tays wanting in a contract? What is Gage Gonsalves want? Because they can make those things work. Then you don't need to go after a guy like JJ Peterka, or maybe you don't need to go after a defenseman because you can sign somebody else in free agency. There's a lot of factors there. We will definitely, though, Matt, be here to cover it all. Again, like and subscribe, ring that bell for notifications, all of that great fun stuff. We really appreciate everybody tuning in live here for another offseason episode, but that's going to do it for us in this one. And with that said, we're going to talk to you guys next week for some more lightning offseason content. Have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you next time. Go Bolts.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.